On May 17th, I started traveling solo across the United States on my Africa Twin in order to ride the Lincoln Highway westbound from New York City to San Francisco. These are my travels. In my last video, I traveled from my sister's house after recovering from my small crash in New Jersey, traveled through Gettysburg, and spent the night in Bedford, Pennsylvania. Through Pennsylvania, the Lincoln Highway travels over what is now Highway 30, going right by the Flight 93 National Memorial. Anyone born before probably 1990 remembers where they were and what they were doing on September 11, 2001. Almost 3,000 individuals lost their lives. It was an event that changed our nation and the world, and the ramifications still affect what we do today. Flight 93 was one of the 4 flights that the terrorists took over that day. Flying out of Newark International Airport in New Jersey, it was headed to San Francisco with a crew of 7, 33 passengers, and 4 hijackers. 46 minutes into the flight, the Boeing 757 over Ohio was taken over by the hijackers, who killed one of the passengers and took control of the cockpit. They turned the plane around and headed back east towards the U.S. Capitol, their intended target. Because the plane was delayed in its departure, the passengers learned of the other 3 plane suicide crashes into the World Trade Center and the Pentagon. They made many phone calls to their family and friends before deciding to take the plane back from the terrorists. At 10:03 in the morning, in an effort to stop the passengers from retaking the plane, the terrorists flew the plane into the ground near Stony Creek Township, Pennsylvania. The National Park Service built a memorial at the site that is extremely moving and poignant. The walk into the memorial building, which is located in the visitor center, is directly under the path that Flight 93 flew in its last few seconds and is marked with a pertinent timeline of the day and terminates about 300 yards from the actual crash site, which is marked by a large boulder in the exact spot of the crash. On June 21st, 2018, the wreckage of the plane was transported to the memorial in several shipping containers and buried at the crash site in a private ceremony for the families and responders. No photo taking or recording is allowed inside the visitor center, and once you're inside, the reason becomes obvious. It's a reverent place, almost a place of worship. I'm not one who displays emotion, but on gaining an understanding of the sacrifice that day, it was hard to keep my eyes dry. In a well-done presentation, the story of the day and the flight is told. A Congressional Gold Medal was issued to the crew and passengers of the flight with the inscription, "A common field one day, a field of honor forever." It is a phrase that reminds us of the sacrifice made by the 40 heroes who saved so many others. It is a phrase that is appropriate for the memorial. After leaving the memorial, I rode through Pittsburgh. One of the stops I made was at my dad's old neighborhood in Dormant to see the house where he grew up.
I don't know. My father grew up in, I think, one of these 2 houses here, and I don't know.
What was the last name?
Williamson. It was in the 30s or 40s.
Oh, okay.
So, no, I was nearby, and I thought, well, I should just go look at them. So it's one of these 2, but I'm sorry.
That was an apartment now.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to disturb you.
Okay, no, that's fine. I just want to make sure you're not lost. Right?
No, I'm not lost. It's just one of these 2, and I don't have the address. But thank you.
Okay.
I finally figured out which house he grew up in, but forgot to take a picture. This is from Google Maps Street View. My niece was working an internship near Niagara Falls, so I left the Lincoln Highway and headed north along Lake Erie to the town of Tonawanda, Pennsylvania. I took her to lunch, she drove. Visited the falls, went back to my motel, and did some bike keeping chores. Niagara Falls played an important part in establishing our national park system. In the late 1860s, several noted individuals, including Ralph Waldo Emerson, Henry Wadsworth Longfellow, and Charles Darwin, founded the Free Niagara movement. The movement believed that the natural beauty of the land surrounding Niagara Falls should be protected from commercial exploitations and remain free to the public. That didn't work. In 1869, Frederick Law Olmsted visited the falls and was appalled by the commercialization that had taken place and lobbied the government of New York and Canada to establish a park around the Niagara Falls. It was finally noted by the American people and politicians that the country needed to protect our natural wonders. And 3 years later, in 1872, the 42nd Congress created the Yellowstone National Park Protection Act, and it was signed into law by President Ulysses S. Grant on March 1st, 1872. And so our national park system began, but it wasn't until 1883 that Grover Cleveland became governor of New York and signed the bill calling for the establishment of a state park at Niagara. The Niagara Appropriations Bill was signed into law in 1885, creating the Niagara Reservation. Park commissioners began by clearing out structures that had blocked views along the upper rapids and limited the number of factories in the areas downstream, creating the falls that we have today. The following morning, I rode to Pittsburgh to get back on the Lincoln Highway and headed to Lisbon, Ohio for the evening before resuming my Lincoln Highway ride the following morning. I hope you enjoyed the video. As always, be great, do good, go out and explore.